Hello. Welcome to Security, Cryptography, whatever. I'm Deirdre.
I'm David. We don't have Thomas today, but I would like to note that Michigan football is undefeated against Ohio State since we started podcasting. So I'm going to take full credit for that.
Cool. We should have gotten Chris Pikert on for end of year holiday call to celebrate another win because he was
and
on
to
last
celebrate
time they won.
post-quantum standardization.
Right. This is basically like a catch-up holiday, not even a mailbag, just like what else did we not talk about this year on the pod episode. And one of the things we didn't talk about is the NIST post-quantum chem key encapsulation mechanism contest came to a close, and the winner, shitty drum roll, was Kyber. Surprise, surprise, a lattice-based chem. However, there were some patent issues or licensing issues. And so a very particular parameter set of Kyber has been licensed to whatever, the community, the world. But all other parameter sets for using Kyber are not available, and that people are a little bit unsure about that.
It seems like nobody is going to use Kyber unless they resolve this licensing issue. But that is kind of like their entire job, so they'll probably get it done, albeit slowly.
NIST's job is to make sure that people can use the cryptography
use
that they
the things that they standardize. Yeah. It's to find something and make it standard and open.
It's like you have one parameter set, one very narrow parameter set. You've got no room for error. But yay, Kyber.
Congratulations to the Kyber team.
Yes.
Whoever they may be, I don't actually know.
I forget who was on that team. Like I know a lot.
We'll look it up and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I know a lot about the dead and dusted. I saw the psych team, but not much about the other teams. What else?
I will say on the post-quantum stuff, the good news is like the chems, we will be able to like integrate into TLS modulo some deployment issues of like things on the internet don't necessarily like big client hellos, and the hellos get a lot bigger
with
these schemes. But like aside from that, there's no fundamental reason that it can't go into TLS, whether that is Kyber or another lattice.
Right.
Signatures, on the other hand, just not. Like, there's too many signatures in TLS, such that like it's like 1 to 2 kilobytes of post-quantum signature or something like that. I'm not quite sure. And there's like 18 or 20 or 40 signatures in the TLS handshake, but not actually quite that many, but like
there's
between
a lot.
the CT log, like each SCT has from multiple CT logs, signatures over the handshakes, signatures in the certificate chain. Signatures everywhere. So that approach, the approach to TLS for the last few years has kind of been, we will simply solve a problem by slapping another signature on the handshake because they're small and quick.
Oh, wow.
But in post-quantum world, signatures are neither small nor quick. I don't know. Maybe they're still quick. I'm not actually sure. They're definitely not small.
Can I interest you in a small and somewhat quick isogeny-based signature?
I still think it's way too freaking big. Like we're talking 64 bytes for like an ED 25519 signature.
That's true. Hold on. Ski sign size. The caveat being that would you like a signature of 200 bytes as opposed to a kilobyte? There is a post-quantum signature competition with NIST that is going. It is still early-ish, not related to the chem one that just finished. And there is possibly another like lone isogeny candidate, but they make, again, one of the attractive parts of isogeny-based cryptography is that it tends to have very small public data. So like the public keys are small, the signatures are small. It seems to be fast. So 2 seconds for signing, 50 milliseconds for verifying for this out-of-date metrics I'm looking at.
2 seconds for signing is not fast, but...
No, but for isogenies, that's really fast. But the downside is it's not just isogenies. It's got like quaternion algebras and other complex stuff.
Quaternions?
Yeah.
You hate it when your TLS handshake ends up in gimbal lock. That's why
Yeah.
you gotta put quaternions in it, right? Like,
Yeah, it's complex, and like even some very like in the weeds mathy people are like, yeah, this is complicated to implement. So it might be small and it might get faster, but it might be an unattractive implementation target for people just trying to deploy the software. We'll see.
Well, the good news is that signatures like they just like don't matter in the sense that they don't matter until there actually is a quantum computer, whereas you could argue that like the chems matter now because you could be recording all the traffic and saving it for when you have a quantum computer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I entirely buy that argument, but like
the signatures matter like right now when you're making the connection, and then if you didn't, you're just like, nah, oh, okay. Whereas with the key exchange,
well, they only matter during the connection, like if a quantum computer actually exists. Whereas like you're right now, your traffic could be being recorded to be saved to be decrypted later by the quantum computer when it exists.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how you signed it now.
Yes. They like, you could record the whole handshake and all the keys that you exchange, and then they just save them for later, and all the traffic that you used after that you encrypted after that. But the signatures, to be vulnerable, you have to have like an online quantum computer issuing signatures or cracking signatures like online. And we think that even if that were to happen, that would be a stupid use of your expensive quantum computer.
And also, I think that we would, like the various parts of the U.S. government, including like some well-known academics, did like a bunch of studying and released a report that was basically like, we would see more second-order effects if a quantum computer existed. The subtext being that if China somehow developed a quantum computer, like the U.S. would know. Yeah. And there's no evidence that the incremental steps that would need to happen to get there have happened.
Sort of reminiscent of when all the academics stopped publishing about nuclear fission research in the 40s. And everyone was like, wait, what happened? Where did they all go? Why did they all go quiet? It's like, oh, they went to a place in the New Mexico
They went
desert.
to Los Alamos, which let me tell you, you should not drive to Los Alamos in a rear-wheel drive car in the winter without first checking the weather, lest you need to turn around and get out of Los Alamos very quickly. It turns out that Los Alamos is at the top of a mountain inside of a valley.
Yeah.
Which in like retrospect makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And there's just a single 2-lane road up there.
Still.
And I drove up there, realized it was about to snow, and was like, I'm turning this Miata around and I'm getting out of here.
Oh my God. Don't make me turn this Miata around. God. Okay, cool. It's not post-quantum things that got published recently that are related to things we've talked about this year. Tailscale released a new thing that they're calling Tailnet Lock, I think, which is actually kind of related to solving a problem that we talked about 2 episodes ago, which is that it's all great if you have your traffic end-to-end encrypted or your messaging end-to-end encrypted. What really matters is who's controlling the keys to those ends. And so Tailnet Lock is basically when you add a new Tailscale device, you have a key pair that goes with your WireGuard connection. Previously, they would just upload the key, the public key, to the control plane or whatever they call it. And the control plane could just see all those keys. And, you know, it could, in theory, just add more keys and just say, hey, connect to this other end of your tailnet. And that was allowable. And now they're basically doing a thing where every new key that gets uploaded has to be signed by another trusted device. And if the signature doesn't verify, then that you just don't get access to that. And so it's avoiding compromise of your ends of your end-to-end encryption from the like control service itself. The devices that you control and you already trust are the only ones that can add new devices or I think remove devices. I haven't looked that far into it from who you can connect to, which is neat.
Do we know what the interface for that looks like? Like,
oh, I don't know.
Like a push notification on it? Like, I wonder how
I don't know. They have a little diagram, but I haven't looked at the literal UX, and I have to update my own Tailscale setup over here because I logged out of it. But yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but I like their diagram. I like their diagram, and I like that they wrote up a white paper, but instead of it being a PDF, a literal white paper, it is a web page. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. Another cool part that I noticed was I think they were already using, because WireGuard uses Curve 25519 key exchange already, and it's like a well-established trick. You can kind of call it a trick where you can turn your Curve 25519 key exchange keys, and you can turn them into ED 25519 signing keys, and you can use them to sign stuff with, the same key pair that you would do either Diffie-Hellman with or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's called Z25519 XED.
For Signal, it definitely is. Yeah. I don't know if they're using it for this one, or at least for the signatures. But if you're using ED 25519 signatures in a distributed setting that has to have independent parties verifying ED 25519 signatures, and they all have to agree on what a valid signature is, you should not use an ED 25519 implementation that is strictly compliant with RFC 8032, because that lets you have a variety of signatures that, depending on how you conform to RFC 8032, may or may not agree on whether a signature is valid or not. And if two ends of your Tailscale network do not agree on whether this thing that you added to your bag of keys is validly signed or not, then you will have a split in consensus of what is a valid bag of keys.
The good news is that like most of the time that you're dealing with that, you just end up with like validation failures. It doesn't really create like fundamental, like the whole security of the system is broken unless you are also trying to rely on the fact that like it's a uniqueness property like some early blockchains did.
Yeah. But if you just want to like have some real clear rules about how to verify which ED 25519 signatures are valid, there is a handy-dandy document from the Zcash people about which signatures and like what points are valid, what keys are valid, and all that, called Zip 215, that has seen adoption because it is very clear and explicit about how to verify these signatures. And so they're using that. And so I was like, hey, I know that document. I know
so
it
what
well.
You're saying is it's only really an ED 25519 signature if it comes from the Montgomery region of MSR.
I wish. What I'm saying is I wish that someone had seen these things in 8032 before everyone just went and had slightly different but conformant implementations of ED 25519 based on 8032. But, well, we're learning, so... But this is very cool. Mm-hmm. Neat to see from Tailscale. And I am always happy to not just having to always trust the server, even if the server is being operated by pretty trustworthy people. We just would like not to be need to trust you at all. Because shit happens.
And since Tailscale came on the podcast in January, like 3 or 4 months later, they raised $100 million. So... I think all WireGuard derivative VPNs that have come on the podcast now have raised $100 million. So once again, we're making waves.
A good business decision to come on the podcast. Yes. Well done to Tailscale. Big fans over here. Let's see. What else haven't we talked about? There are beaches, but there are also breaches, like security breaches. There was like an Uber breach where they like, what happened?
Yes. I believe someone bought like Uber credentials off of the gray market or black market or whatever. I think was the landing point, you know, like initial access broker. I don't know where they came from. Mm-hmm. Some like employee laptop credentials.
Yeah.
And then they use that to get access to Source, which they then use to find like admin credentials to the cloud account or something. I don't know. They found credentials in Source. They pivoted. They push spammed somebody, and then they impersonated IT to trick them into accepting the push spams, even though they were rejecting them. And then they were on. I think the notable thing to know is that the attacker was on Slack with like actively interacting with Uber employees. And since then, the alleged hacker is, I believe, arrested in the UK. Maybe it's like a 17-year-old British kid, I think. 17-year-old someone, allegedly. So I don't know. Maybe don't interact with employees on Slack if you're breaching a tech company.
But how do you brag? How do you not just be like, yo, I am in your cloud?
This podcast condones doing financial crimes once you've breached a company rather than just screwing around on Slack.
Just be, oh my God. Yeah. I don't know. So like, did they have literally like are you trying to log in to AWS? Yes, no. And they just got pushed to people's devices and they just kept. I don't remember
specific. It was one of those, whether it was a Duo or something else that like sends a request and you say no. But if you keep getting them, you might eventually say yes.
Yeah.
But I think what was notable was they then did a spear phishing attempt where they pretended to be Uber like internal IT and had that person tell the employee to accept the push. They were like, we'll deal with it, like accept it now and then we'll do this, or like we'll handle it.
Wow. Yeah.
And mark it as fraud or something. And so they accepted it. And I think that was perhaps the initial foothold, or maybe that was what got them on the Slack. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's impressive. Yeah. Like you don't just have to trick them one time. You can literally DOS them and just overwhelm them and just be like, it's fine. Just click accept. And you're like, please, thank you.
This goes back to my long-standing policy: if you can't be phished, if you never check your email.
Yeah.
And I think you can amend that with don't have to worry about your Slack credentials being stolen if you don't use Slack.
Yeah. Teams. The next thing will be Teams. I don't know.
No one successfully pivoted across an Active Directory-based network in the past, so. Okta was breached at some point this year. I think that was this year. It was like January or February or something.
Yeah.
And they had a really bad, they kind of denied it at first or downplayed it.
Yeah.
And then apologized later.
Yeah. I remember it being like people, it feeling kind of like, really? Are you trying? Like, I would have thought a little bit better of Okta. And then they finally kind of stopped downplaying it a bit.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the people that I talked to like never had a particularly high opinion of like Okta's security, but used Okta anyway because they had the feature set that was needed.
Yeah. Huh.
And so now, what I think was interesting about this breach was like everyone yelled at Okta about it. And I believe for good reason. I don't remember the details, but like no one was like, "Hey, vendor X, your security is like a piece of shit because you use Okta." Like you just kind of get a free pass to use Okta.
Yeah.
It's like a way as like a head of security to just like dump the blame onto somebody else. Because at this point, like you somehow don't get like no one gets fired for buying Microsoft. No one gets fired for buying Okta. But also no one gets fired for buying Okta. But then when Okta gets breached either.
No.
So.
Like, this is supposed to be your job. It's like, yeah.
Launder your reputation through Okta. This is the takeaway for security teams.
Oh, God. Is there any proper competitor to Okta? Like, all I can think of is, like, you already have Google Workspace or you already have some other thing, some IDP identity provider. And you're just like, you just completely leverage that.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, Google, Duo to some extent, I think are the big ones. Maybe there's Ping Identity. I don't know much about them. Yeah, I mean, it depends, I think.
Didn't Duo get bought by Cisco?
Duo is owned by Cisco, yes.
Okay. But it's still its own thing? You can still just do Duo? Because I know it's still hooked up into lots of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are options. The feature sets between everything vary. I don't think we necessarily want to go into a deep dive on picking an SSO provider.
No, like the principle makes sense, which is like not everyone can build their own, like fully stood up two-factor if you want to do a good job with FIDO, if you recovery flow. Not everyone has the like staff and talent and can just do that. And so that's why they exist, so that you can plug in all of that via Okta and usually works fine. But I definitely thought that they were better.
I don't know. I probably have like people like off to the side looking at me sideways already. But I don't know. The other thing to keep in mind is like, do you need to authenticate your employees or do you also need to like authenticate customers? Like, do you need a provider to do MFA for your customer accounts, like who can do that.
Yeah.
All things to keep in mind.
Yeah. All right. There seemed to be like a running presence of CISOs getting into trouble this year, and not all of them were associated with Twitter.
Yeah. So there was a drizzly consent decree from the FTC, but that was actually about their CEO. I don't know that they have a CISO.
And drizzly's like the deliver booze to your house. Yes. It's Uber for booze, right?
Or Grubhub for alcohol.
Grubhub for booze.
Or Instacart for alcohol, I guess. And yeah, I believe that like someone on the executive team, maybe the CEO themselves, had like a 7-character password for GitHub with no 2FA that like they reused on other services and that like got breached, and then they like didn't do anything about it or something like that. Yeah, and then they like kicked the hackers out or changed the password, but quote, according to the FTC, failed to take steps to adequately address its security problems while publicly claiming to have put appropriate security protections in place. And 2 years later, a similar thing happened. So they got a consent decree from the FTC and have to like take some steps to improve security, and presumably the CEO or someone else on the executive team as part of those consent decrees usually ends up with personal liability. Which is why they're a big deal.
Yeah.
So like as long as you do the thing, you're fine. But if you don't do the thing, it's not just like Drizzly gets in trouble. It's like you personally.
Is that what happened to
trouble.
Uber as well? Like Joe Sullivan, that guy?
So Joe Sullivan, who was the CISO of Uber, there was some sort of FTC investigation of Uber in like 2016, I believe. I think it had to do with the privacy protections. So they're being investigated for unrelated reasons, but like had reasons that they had to disclose things to the FTC. And during that time, they were breached / bug bountied by somebody.
Yeah.
There was like, it was a kind of a gray line between whether or not this was someone who was doing a bug bounty or someone that was extorting them.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were like, okay, we'll pay you like a bug bounty and make you sign an NDA, and then this problem will go away.
Yeah.
But they apparently did not disclose it correctly and specifically didn't tell the FTC about it. And then maybe, I don't know, like might have lied about it after the fact. I'm not sure, to the FTC. And so Joe Sullivan, who I believe now is at Cloudflare, ended up being found like personally liable for handling this, because like on one hand, it's like, oh, we had a successful bug bounty. On the other hand, it's like you paid off some attackers and didn't tell anybody. And so I think the moral of the story here is don't lie to the FTC.
Yep. Or they will find you personally, not your company, you personally guilty of obstruction of the FTC, like a proper capital F felony. Which is
you can lie to your local cops, but you can't lie to the FBI and you can't lie to the FTC.
Yeah, it's shut the fuck up Friday for your local little coppers. But if you're under an FTC consent decree, don't lie to the feds because they will convict you of lying to the feds. Not just for companies that have FTC issues, but do CISOs do anything, or are they just a scapegoat, including for FTC issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you're in this weird spot as a CISO. Like, do you have influence on engineering? Like, where are these things? Like, are you doing compliance? Well, compliance might not even be under you. Do you have like product stuff to like make the product be designed and built securely? Well, maybe not. I don't know. And then like you could easily find yourself in a spot where like, I don't know, maybe you have the security analysts or something, but like, can you actually do anything to like improve the security posture, or are you just being paid a lot of money to have the personal liability from the FTC and, you know, hope that everyone else is complying with your consent decrees if you have one? I don't know. That is a failure situation that you could be in as a CISO.
I have a theory that CISOs make more sense if you are not a technology-first organization. If you're an insurance company that has technology, then a chief information security officer or chief security officer makes a little bit more sense, because you have to kind of be in charge of a lot of things, like internal HR systems, but also like whatever, the software that actually manages your insurance stuff. I don't know, whatever. But if you are a technology company, you're an engineering company, that is the thing that, that is your primary offering value as a company. It might not really quite make sense anymore. Like, you kind of want good security practices to be part of how you build your technology and how you run your service. So having that be outside of the, technology org, engineering org, product org, however you set that up, might not make sense.
Yeah, like if you're need to do technical security work, that's probably going to be handled by the technical teams who like understand the platform and can build security into the product, which is why you see like product aligned security leaders, but like they might not be at the C level, right? So like, which kind of means that if the CISO is migrating back towards the business side, then it's not like, what are they doing? But like, are you starting to look perhaps more like a legal or like a CFO type person and less so like a VP-Eng type role? We'll see.
Yeah. It's definitely like, it really depends on how you build stuff if you are an engineering driven sort of company, but also what responsibilities you have. Like there's compliance and there's audits, and like if you're processing payments, like you have like a whole bunch of people that just have to be in charge of making sure that you're PCI compliant and like you pass your required audits and stuff like that. So there might be several people that like have something to do with quote security, but they maybe have a bunch of different titles because of everything that you try to do. But yeah, I don't know.
And then if things go weird, you end up testifying to Congress. At least one CISO testified to Congress about Twitter this year.
Yeah. A guy named Mudge. That was interesting.
And we've all moved past that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. It was weird.
Let's stop talking about boring organization stuff and let's talk about Rust.
Ooh, yes. All right. You work at this company, so I'll talk because I'm excited. There was a nice blog post out from Google Security, blah, 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 1st of December, memory safe languages in Android 13, and just lots of nice pie charts, bar charts, measurements of lines of code and how many memory safety vulnerabilities were found proportional to their code per Android release. We'll link to the post in the show notes, but I'm going to read some of these bold-faced lines from this blog post. Android 13 is the first Android release where a majority of new code added to the release is in the memory safe language. Oh, that's nice. And some of those memory safe languages include Java, because it's Android, Kotlin, which is new Java, basically, and Rust. We all love Rust. Another thing that they said is 2022 is the first year where memory safety vulnerabilities do not represent a majority of Android's vulnerabilities. Not just vulnerabilities in new code, and not just in Android 13, but the first year where memory safety vulnerabilities do not represent the majority of Android's vulnerabilities. And that is a big win, because in almost every large project, like a browser or an OS, almost always 50, 60, 70% of vulnerabilities are memory safety. So basically, Android is showing that all of the sort of wins that a lot of us have been trying to evangelize about memory safe languages such as Rust and like how to deploy them in some of these existing projects, that it will drive down your memory safety issues, is showing real fruit in a hugely deployed project and a very large project with millions and millions of lines of code as Android. And it's so exciting to see. This was very nice to see. What else? To date, there have been 0 memory safety vulnerabilities discovered in Android's Rust code. That's so sexy. Historical vulnerability density is greater than 1 per 1,000 lines of code in many of Android's C++ components, such as Bluetooth, media decoding, and things like that. Based on this historical vulnerability density, it's likely that using Rust has already prevented hundreds of vulnerabilities from reaching production. And I'm just like, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it's just
Deirdre is
yes,
literally
yes.
bouncing back and forth.
Yes. Like this is it. This is the shit. This is exactly it. Let's see. What about non-memory safety vulnerabilities, you ask? Because you can still have logic errors, right? Yes, you can. A drop in severity. So despite only representing 36% of vulnerabilities in the security bulletin, memory safety vulnerabilities accounted for 86% of our critical severity security vulnerabilities and 89% of our remotely exploitable vulnerabilities. Blah, 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 blah. Basically, with the drop in memory safety vulnerabilities, we're seeing a corresponding drop in vulnerability severity. So if you're not introducing new memory unsafe code, or you're modifying memory unsafe code and all the new code that you're introducing is memory safe, it turns out the vulnerabilities you do have are less severe. So it's just all these wins all the way down. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically new code that they're introducing is basically all memory safe. It's millions. It's not small. It's millions of lines of code in Rust, Kotlin, and Java, and they're not touching old C and C++ code. That seems to match the expectation of experienced people in these sorts of code bases, where if you don't touch the older kind of battle-tested C and C++ code, you're generally not going to like magically find new vulnerabilities in there. It's if you're modifying the C and C++ code, and so you want to try to do new stuff in the memory safe languages. If you add or rewrite something, you want to do it in the memory safe language, and that generally will keep you in a good spot. And that seems to be playing out for Android, at least.
Yeah, it's not clear that the fact that like vulnerabilities were mostly in new stuff and not old stuff in Android would necessarily apply to other projects where, because like another failure scenario, like that'll certainly apply to one class. Another class of projects vulnerabilities can stem from like older code that like worked in one way and had a mental model of the code, but that could not necessarily be enforced entirely by the type system, the compiler, etc. But you reason through it, it gets complicated, you figure out the right way to do it, and then in the future, new feature comes in that changes the constraints or changes the invariance around that code, and then suddenly, even though you didn't touch some of the old code, the way in which, like, if you have code that has a lot of callbacks, for example, kind of think about the memory safety of projects like that being like JavaScript before TypeScript, right? You change one part of the code and then suddenly a callback in a completely unrelated section is throwing errors. So that is another failure mode that you can end up in that results in memory safety vulnerabilities. But it's going to depend on your project. Now, does that mean that like you shouldn't be trying to use memory safe languages? No, just that like you might see the impact of it play out different as you start to add them in various parts of the project.
That's wild. Like the JavaScript example is sort of like, yep, like I can totally, like I remember that where I changed something and something completely, another place already just got broke because it assumed that maybe not global state, but its global context had certain invariants. And it's like, nope, that was not controlled by your runtime. It was not controlled by whatever compiler you have or the type system you have or, the memory model you have. And whoopsie doodle, you're trying to call something that doesn't exist anymore and it's broken. Yeah, that's interesting.
I remember there's an old Twitter account, maybe it still exists, that was a magic realism bot.
Yeah.
Tweet like short descriptions of fake magic realism stories.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, it's revealed that the world is actually like a hallucination in the mind of an ostrich or something like that. And someone like quote tweets it and it's like, what's shared mutable state? Anything is possible. And that's what I think of in these situations. I've tried to find this again. I did not save it well and I can't ever seem to find it well, but
magical realism. I'm excited to see this progress and hopefully we'll see more like hard metrics and like results from any projects that are adventuring into a hopefully more memory safe future. Thanks, Android. And I'm happy Android user. I'm all patched up in Android 13. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm very excited to have all this Rust running on my fucking glowing square device. All right. Ooh, another project that has more Rust is Chrome. They're doing all the tooling apparently so that they will support Rust in their whole build and pipeline. And they're accepting third-party dependencies in Rust as well. And like I can think of some that I would like to use if I were doing cryptography in a Chrome context. This is very exciting. And let's see, hold on.
No Rust in the actual like Chromium source though, just dependencies.
Okay, but still, but you all build it all in. Cool. I wonder if they'll pull in Russell's, the TLS. No, they won't. Pull in the Rust implementation of TLS.
Is that how you pronounce that?
I think so. Yeah.
I've always said Rust TLS, but now that I think about it, there is only one T.
Yeah. It's like Russell my Jimmies, but it's just Russell's.
Yeah. Too bad Thomas isn't here. He loves the phrase Russell my Jimmies.
Yay for Rust in these big C++ projects. I'm very happy to see slowly but surely Rust getting pulled into Chrome. It feels like the Rust usage in Android started very slowly and quietly, and then all at once they're just like, oh, we've deployed like 1.3 million lines of Rust in Android 13. Like, surprise! We've been doing this and working on this the whole time. It's like, yeah, surprise! They're not rewriting Android in Rust, but they are doing like these big components and adding not anything new, but like new pieces in Rust. And like all of a sudden you get to 1.3 million lines or whatever they've deployed. So maybe more with Chrome. Okay, what else?
Well, over the summer we had Adam Langley on to talk about passkeys, and those that now like officially launched in Chrome.
Yes.
Just a couple weeks ago.
I'm excited about this. I think this got officially announced on the 8th of December. And I think I used this. I used it at least once on my phone. But what does it say? So just a reminder, passkeys are supposedly going to replace passwords. So instead of having a alphanumeric phrase that you have to remember or write down or put in your password manager, and you really, really hope that you don't use the same one in more than one place, even though people do. Instead of that, you basically do what you have been able to do with like a YubiKey or another FIDO key pair that will get generated for you for your website that you're trying to log into, and do the kind of same challenge response protocol where you will register the public part of your passkey with your website, and then when you try to log into the website, it'll issue you a challenge, and then you will, sign the challenge with your private key, part of your passkey, and then return it. And if it can verify the signature basically over the challenge, you can log in. You can use this with your real YubiKey as well, where your YubiKey is still your two-factor. But the idea is that there's no more typing passwords. It's just a passkey that can get synced as well. You can sync it between devices and use it for your website the same way you would sync passwords, but it's not phishable. You can't phish a password and like say, send someone the wrong link that looks like, facebook.com, and then to be like, put in your Facebook password, and then you just type it in, and the attacker's like, oops, I have your password now. Bye. I'm going to reset your account and use it to spam people and scam them too. And it seems like this cross-browser OS consortium with the FIDO industry, I forget what they're called. The FIDO consortium? I forget. Apple and Google and Microsoft are all, holding hands and moving together to deploy passkeys across the industry so that no one is getting left behind and that they can be set up for success for getting adoption.
No login left behind.
Yes. No login left behind. So yeah, with Chrome, latest version of Chrome, which is what, 110 or something like that? 119? No, sorry, 118?
It's either 110 or 111. I'm not sure.
Okay. Where
I think I would know.
The guy who works on Chrome.
I always go, so there's a chromium-org or .com or something like that, and they have a release. There's a release schedule on that, and that's what I look at whenever I need to figure this out.
With the latest version of Chrome, we're enabling passkeys on Windows 11, Mac OS, and Android. On Android, your passkeys will be securely synced through Google Password Manager, or in future versions of Android, any password manager that supports passkeys. And I bet you $1, maybe more than $1, that 1Password, big fan of 1Password for your password manager, will be supporting those as soon as possible. Do they?
Actually,
they might. Let's see.
I'm not sure. Maybe only in like beta or something like that. Current Chrome version is 108. Apparently, I was just completely wrong.
They are posting about them. They are coming. Let's see. Yeah, passkey support will be available in early 2023. So it's not in 1Password yet, but it is coming like rapido, and I will be super ready to. So the caveat being, if your browsers support it and there's a little bit of OS support involved. Actually, I'm not sure if there is. For Chrome syncing, that's the same sort of sync mechanism for your password manager and things like that. You still need the websites to support using passkeys. So similar to how not every website will let you register a YubiKey or a FIDO key for your two-factor. Not every website will just be ready to let you ditch your old password and use passkeys instead. They have to support it. But I think that will happen. And like the first stumbling block that, of course needs to be overcome is that all the browsers support it. And so that seems to be just happening, and with good cross-company coordination. And that is so exciting.
Just this week, I think, or maybe late last week, SBF got arrested.
Oh, fuck.
While earlier I might have suggested that you do financial crimes if you were hacking companies, in general, my advice is to not do financial crimes. And if you are doing financial crimes, don't create a group chat that's the name of the federal offense of the financial crime and
wire
then chat
fraud.
about it. Do not create a group chat called wire fraud where you discuss all the wire fraud that you're doing.
Oh my God. Or just fraud. Even if I am not a lawyer. I am not. This podcast is not considered financial advice. Like investment involves risk and all that crap.
Not only that, but while Deirdre may be a cryptographer, she's not your cryptographer.
That's true.
So don't take any of her advice.
Yeah, this fucking guy.
Have you ever seen It's a Wonderful Life?
No, I've seen like clips from the very end, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there's a scene in It's a Wonderful Life where the main character runs a bank, and then there's like a run on the bank.
Yes.
And they can't give the money out, right? Because he's like any good bank, he's taken the money and then he's loaned it to people to get mortgages. Mm-hmm. So in this situation, he had a liquidity crisis, and I'm just stealing this explanation from Matt Levine's Money Stuff.
Which is,
right? And that he did not have all of the money to give back to everybody because he had loaned it out. But he was still solvent because people were still paying their loans, and those houses really existed. And so like if you add up all the numbers in the spreadsheet or in the accounting book or whatever it is, it's all fine. It's just that money wasn't there right now. That is not what happened with FTX. Imagine if instead he took all that money and then lit it on fire, and then people came and asked for it back. Or then the spreadsheets don't add up.
But
then to make the spreadsheets to add up, maybe you like pull a piece of shit out of your pocket and you're like, this is actually worth $8 billion.
Like FTT.
And that's how you made the balance sheet add up. And that's closer to what FTX did rather than what George Bailey did in It's a Wonderful Life.
What was the line? Like weird fiat, like, God, that spreadsheet, it was just sunshine and rainbows and wishes and dreams instead of actual accounting of what, $7 to $8 billion that they lost. Yeah. It was very funny because I work on a private cryptocurrency and a lot of cryptography that's, in and around it. When like FTX just went poof, and this guy just was like on his little speaking tour trying to be like, I feel really bad. I fucked up. And it's like, and you're arrested. People are like, is this going to affect you? Is this going to affect Zcash? I'm like, let me check. No. No. There's all this, worry about contagion, about the rest of crypto. And it's just like, like I don't think it really affects Zcash. Zcash is over here and it's nice kind of in this nice little bubble.
And while it is perhaps kind of a goofy situation, presumably a lot of like normal people lost their shirts because all the money is gone.
Yes.
And that is certainly not good.
No, this guy just his fucking...
And also maybe Tom Brady lost a bunch of money too. So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out if Giselle was smart enough to like just be completely separate.
I don't actually know if Tom Brady had any actual money in FTX or if he was just in their commercials.
Yeah, I don't know either, but...
I will say the one like weird side effect of this is UC Berkeley sold the naming rights of Cal Memorial Stadium to FTX.
What?
A year or two ago.
What?
And they got to take it down.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
No longer this. I think this became a thing after Enron. I feel like a basketball stadium, and I want to say Dallas was named like the Enron Arena for like 5 years after Enron went under. And apparently, as a result of that, or nowadays, it's more clear that like if your sponsor goes bankrupt, you simply take it down.
Yeah. What was the other stadium that FTX bought the naming rights to? Was it the Staples Center?
The Miami Heat.
Oh, it was the okay.
Or the one in LA.
Yeah. The other basketball
another arena that LeBron used to play in. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that one.
Although maybe that's a new arena. I don't know.
Did the Heat arena take it down too? I thought they did.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just allowed to do that. It's just embarrassing.
Apparently, like spending at nightclubs in Miami has gone down a lot because the value of cryptocurrency is way lower.
Yeah, it's definitely a crypto winter. So the crypto city, Miami, seems to be going into hibernation, as it were. Yeah, this whole FTX, Alameda, Sam Bankman-Fried shit show it just seems like plain old embezzlement. It's like not even anything into anything interesting with crypto, like, or anything interesting with the blockchain or anything with like tethers or stable coins or any of these other sort of things that have like happened earlier this year, like Terra and Luna and all that crap. It doesn't seem like this collapsed because really of any of that. It was just he and they were taking money out the back door and not paying it back. And like, whoopsie doodle. Like the price of your self-issued token that like your whole balance is being held in starts to drop. And then there was a run on FTT, on FTX. And then it's just, we don't have $8 billion worth of assets.
Yeah. Imagine if you went to like Bank of America and you were like, hey, I'm a hedge fund. Can I borrow $8 billion? And they're like, well, what can you put up as collateral for the $8 billion? And you're like, how about $8 billion of Bank of America stock? Bank of America's answer would be no, fuck you. Like, that's not something you're allowed to put up as collateral. Like, that's just like double leveraging yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't pay you back, then not only do you not have that money, but presumably your stock goes down. Like, it's a highly correlated asset.
Yes.
Maybe it would need to be a bigger number for Bank of America, but like still. In general, that's not something that normal banks would accept.
No.
Did anything else happen this year? What's going to happen next year, Deirdre? Give me a prediction.
God. All right. We're going to slog through this NIST signature competition. And of course, there's going to be one little isogeny scheme that could. This one doesn't involve any torsion points. So this one is not going to just die a fiery death with like half an hour on a laptop on a weekend in August like the last one did. But who knows? It seems a bit complicated. So we have to do some analysis on it to see if we want to use it. But signatures, lattice signatures, they're big, they're beefy, but they're fast-ish. I think this competition will have less intense vigilance over it than the Chem one for reasons that we described earlier, where like the attack scenario on post-quantum signatures is just a very different thing than just recording the entire key exchange and all the traffic you encrypted under it and just saving it for later, which is what you cared about with the post-quantum Chem. So that will happen. I was talking to a couple of cryptography people and I'm sort of like, what are you nerding out about? Like, what are you doing for funsies that's cryptography related? And almost all of them were like, I'm learning about lattice schemes. I'm learning about Kyber. I'm learning about this. I'm learning about that. They're either implementing it or they're learning, like they're finally getting into the nitty gritty of these lattice-based schemes. I'm sort of like, all right, I guess I got to start learning more in depth about these lattice schemes and maybe it'll be Kyber. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're going to get another supply chain security notable breach.
Fuck. Yeah, you're right.
But I don't think it's going to come through like an open source dependency. I feel like a lot of the discussion of like supply chain security ends up being around like, oh, you know, where are your node dependencies or where are your Python dependencies coming from? And well, stuff certainly does happen bad. Like there's been like ransomware or other, like, that type of stuff. I think the token example so far has been SolarWinds.
Yeah.
And I think it's more likely we'd see something else like SolarWinds where a provider that has access to something that goes into software gets popped than like you would see a targeted attack through a open source dependency. That's my prediction.
I don't like that. I don't want that to happen.
My second prediction is that Michigan will defeat TCU in the college football playoff semifinal. And then go on to re-defeat Ohio in the college football championship.
Hell yeah.
Thereby making it the first year that Michigan beats Ohio twice.
Go Blue. I have no college football loyalties except sort of the UCLA Bruins because Nathan went to UCLA. I went to MIT. We had a D3 football team. They made it to the playoffs once in my waking memory. And I was like, we have a football team? So go Michigan. I'm trying to think. I don't want more supply chain attacks, but I can't deny that they are scary. What happened recently, Log4j? We had all these executive orders about SolarWinds, but also related to Log4j.
Yeah.
So,
well, with Log4j wasn't really what you would call a supply chain attack.
No, it was just
a vulnerability in a third-party dependency.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Which is more commonly known as like security, right? Patching, right?
Yeah. I keep hearing about S-bombs. Fucking
software bill of materials.
Yeah, and I just don't like, okay, I don't want to have to do more work to make, I don't know, a checklist be checked for something that I don't know is going to really offer a tangible security benefit.
I mean, I don't know specifically how the like requirements from the executive order play out. They will say this is the same executive order. We had Eric Mill on earlier in the year talking about zero trust. The same executive order that was doing zero trust is also mandating some secure software practices, part of which includes like tracking an SBOM, a software bill of materials, for what you do. And it's unclear, like I don't know the details of like what is required, what isn't, and the format that things come out in, and so on. But like, unless you are a mega large organization, if you are using, I don't know, if you are tracking just your third-party dependencies sanely, like in your development process by like, if you're just using cargo, like if you were a REST project, that is, I believe, enough tracking to like, to in terms of the fundamental data that you need is there. Okay. It's just, it gets complicated because like in reality, you probably have more dependencies than might be in your cargo, whether it's because you use software, like what about the third-party services that you like communicate with in other ways, or you know, you probably have things coming in from different versions. And
that's fair. So like my cargo lock is most of the way there. Okay. All right.
But I'm also kind of making a bunch of that up, so I could be completely wrong.
I really like the trend line of more projects incorporating more memory safe languages like Rust. I've been hearing more about more Swift being implemented in iOS and other Apple systems, which is nice. I don't see a day where Apple is going to start pulling in Rust into iOS. But if they make Swift an even more fully featured language so that people can use that on Apple systems, that would be great. Because I know some people who would really like to write nice crypto or other tools in Swift, and it's not as nice as Rust. So So it's a bit harder.
Does Zig count as a memory safe language or no?
Doesn't it? I think it does. Doesn't it have a weird...
It doesn't. So it gives you spatial memory safety, but not temporal memory safety.
I don't...
Meaning
yeah,
that you're not going to have buffer overflows, but you could still have use after freeze.
I don't like that. That'll get you. I feel like those temporal ones, those are the ones that'll get you. They would get me. They would get me. I'm really looking forward to the rollout of passkeys. I really hope we can get sites and web services to adapt passkeys. It would really help for a lot of the attacks that we just talked about, like people getting phished, people getting targeted. And if you need to have a trusted device, or you need to have a stored, non-duplicated, asymmetric crypto key pair to log into whatever, Okta or Slack or whatever it is, you're less likely to get a huge fucking breach. So, crossing my fingers for wide adoption of passkeys through the next year. That would be really, really, really great, I think. The ease of use is really sexy. And like, if you just show people the demo of just like, click, log in, and like your browser knows your credentials and will log you in and know really this is way better than you remembering a password. I think that is so nice that it'll be very attractive to just a generic human user. Yeah. But I do worry that people will be like, where's my password? I just want my password. I just want to be able to remember like my child's name and the year of their birth.
My mother's maiden name.
Yeah. And like, that's just the thing I remember. And it's just like, I swear to God, this is better. And look, you just click the button. Like, you don't even have to remember that. So I think there will be, a bit of evangelizing to do, but that's not my job. I
got a M2 MacBook Air a week or two ago.
Nice.
And I was setting it up, and I was logging into my Google account so that I could have my contacts synced and stuff. And it prompted the first thing that it asked when I was like signing into Google was like, do you want to sign in with a passkey or something else, like in Apple? And I was like, yeah, I want to sign in with a passkey, but I didn't have a passkey, so it failed.
Like, I really want to.
I was hoping that it would like push me through a flow where I then signed in with something else and created a passkey.
Yeah. But didn't quite do that yet. But that's nice. It's just like you didn't have to like go into the super user awesome, like, what you're doing flow to go find it. It was like, do you want to?
It was like the first thing that it asked me.
Yes. Good. Cool. Yeah. That's the thing that I am excited about. And I hope, like, we've got some good momentum going with all of these browser vendors and all of these OS vendors, like, being ready to go. Like, what if, this is wild, I don't know if it'll happen, but what if TikTok supported passkeys? That'd be fucking amazing.
Well, TikTok supports sign in with Apple.
All right.
Which will presumably support passkeys.
That'd be fucking great. That would be amazing. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I am hoping that is what our new year brings in security and cryptography and whatever.
Well done. We brought it back to the name of we said the name of the thing in the thing.
Roll credits.
That's exactly. Well, I think on that note, I guess we'll thank our listeners for another year of support. Wish them all a happy holidays. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Thank you all for listening. Insert your preferred car dealership holiday sale here. Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you in the new year. I'm waving at you, listener, and this is a podcast. Bye. And Thomas wishes you a happy new year as well. Yes, wherever he is. Security, Cryptography, Whatever is a side project from Deirdre Connolly, Thomas Ptacek, and David Adrian. Our editor is Nettie Smith. You can find the podcast on Twitter at SCWPod, and the hosts on Twitter at Durham Crustulum, at TQBF, and at David C. Adrian. You can buy merchandise at merch.securitycryptographywhatever.com. Thank you for listening.